Hey, preachers, teachers, pastors. I don't know if you've had an experience like this, but on Sunday night, after preaching our last service, our fourth service, I came home and kind of unwinding, and already in my head, I was like, oh, this outline wasn't the greatest, and maybe it didn't make as much sense, and what was the actual thing about, and was I trying to squeeze in too much, which is like a frequent problem for me. And it's funny. I've been preaching weekly since 2009 for 16 years, and then before that, I was preaching regularly several times a year in a local church context. And I always feel like I'm growing as a preacher, growing as a steward of this gift that we get to proclaim the Word of God to the people of God. And for all of the dynamics that are out there, when you think about the Word of God itself, the commentaries, all of the study habits, the dynamics of studying, the dynamics of sermon writing, do we use templates? What are some of the approaches there? The dynamics of a preaching team. For all of those different dynamics, one of the ones that is not talked about enough is the dynamic of the preacher themselves, the life of the individual that is bringing the Word of God. Rich Velotis and I were doing this long webinar together called Deeply Formed Preaching, and we're going to spend hours talking about all the dynamics. We're going to talk about how to study well. We're going to talk about how to write in a way that sticks and communicates with people. We're going to talk about developing teams, and along the way, we're going to cover things like sort of this changing cultural landscape. But honestly, the thing that we're going to devote a lot of time to is the life of the preacher. What does it look like to actually be formed by the very message we are proclaiming? What does it look like to come to the scriptures, not just to get something out of it, but to allow it into us, to change us? And how do we do that? And then how does that affect us kind of in the days after preaching? There's something about taking this weight seriously, but not allowing it to actually become part of who we are, so that our whole identity is wrapped up in the sermon or the message. So it's going to be a great time. And listen, there's a rate there for individuals, but there's a rate there for teams that's even better. And it would be an amazing thing. Your team doesn't even all need to be in the same room in order to have access to it. In fact, you can have access to the playback of this webinar for 3 months afterwards. So details are below. Sign up now and save your spot at the Deeply Formed Preaching webinar. We'll see you there.